At this point, we'll take a look at chapter 1, which of course is a foundation remains forever. Okay, so Morayo, chapter 1, I guess that was the chapter that finally caught my attention for real. It's a very personal story. It's a story that I actually do wonder, when you finished writing it, did you ask yourself, do I really want to put this information out there? Did you have any doubts, or you just felt, well, whatever, let's do this?
You know, when I reminded myself why I wrote the book because I realized that, especially as Africans and Nigerians, we don't really tell our stories because of this African mentality of don't let people know what you've been through. You know, let's hush and hide certain things of our stories. And I realized that that doesn't serve anybody. You know, the dark parts, the good parts, the ugly parts, everything needs to be shared so that the next generation can know that you actually walk through their path. Many people see your success and just feel as if, oh, she was just lucky, it was connection, somebody helped her, not knowing that you actually walk the path. So it's important for me, when I remind myself that, Morayo, you have to share, as painful and difficult as it is, you must share, because it's your responsibility to let the person coming behind you to know that you've gone through that path, and they too can go through that path and still come out tops at the end of the tunnel. So I wasn't bothered by the stories. Of course, I was worried about family, what would they say, saying about this, but I think because they all know the kind of purpose God has given me, I'm a TV presenter, the kind of job I do, I talk about them anytime on television anyway. So that like there's no hidden secret. Morayo tells it all on TV. So that's her life. So that's my own calling. I've been called to be an open book, so that people can read it and become better for themselves.
Now, the open book parts, I just wonder, you know, you did mention your family. Was it easier for you to put this out there with, you know, your parents' demise? They're not there anymore to probably, especially your mom, like, Morayo, why will you put this out there? Without your mom and dad to like pull the reins in?
When Dr. Stephen Akintayo started the interview with me, he wanted to interview my mom. In fact, there was a chapter that she was supposed to be about her, you know, and I don't know what happened. I think she just wasn't ready. She just said, Morayo, you know what, maybe next time, let's do it. And we kept mixing up the dates until eventually we just never did it. But she was supposed to be part of the book. Now, would she have approved of me to say all these things? That's a different conversation, because I know that it will take a while. But because my mother also understands my assignment, she's crystal clear. And even though sometimes when I say things about the family, she will call all my uncles, yab me, and then call me later and say, I've already abused you, but I know that you did it because you're trying to teach people this lesson. So she always understands, and should have understood why I needed to share my story that way.
Yeah, I can tell, because of course you did mention here. So on page 5, you were talking about the story surrounding your birth. And then you did say that there was no fairy tale surrounding my arrival. And out of sheer respect and love for my father and my family, my mother waited until I was mature before telling me the story of my birth.
Interestingly, I was even shocked, because she told me just some years back, she was very careful not to bother me or burden me with a lot of drama growing up. She was extremely intentional about that. And because when I grew older and when she started giving me stories, I was like, you went through that? Really? I never knew. You know, but she shielded me from all that. And, you know, what's interesting that she didn't allow me to judge my dad or judge anybody. So even the experiences that I had, I never even knew I had them. Until when I grew up, and as an adult, you have to confront your past. And sometimes I start to think back and understand, retrace my steps. At what point did I begin to do this? At what point did I make this decision? And then I realized, oh, it's because of this that this happened. So she was very careful not to let me share in the burden of the time when she was going through a lot of hard time too.
Do you appreciate that, or you wish she had at least let you in, giving you a glimpse so you could even be our own support as well? Do you sometimes feel that way?
No, I think she made the right decision, because if I had known quite a few of the things that she went through, maybe I would have judged wrongly my dad. You know, she allowed me to accept my father for who he is or who he was. He's your father, he provides for you, and that's all you need to know. Every other thing, it doesn't concern you until you're mature. So she did not let me see any other parts of my dad. She always gave my father the ultimate respect, and never, even when people talk bad about him, she never allowed me to pay attention to that. She always made me see only the good in my father. Even when he was sick, she would force me to take care of him because she felt that, listen, you owe this man took care of you. Stay put and, take care of him. Because as a teenager, you want to go out, you want to do other things. She said, no, take care of your father. So, I think I don't regret it. I think she shielded me well, and I think as I became an adult, I think it was the right time to tell me a lot of things that she told me. So I agree with that decision.
Now, many young people today would disagree. They say they want, and some of them are seeing this and everything. And I know these are some issues that have even come up on Your View, where some people would tell you that, she should let her children know what's happening. When some of these things come up on the show, do you think back to your childhood, or do you even agree sometimes with certain situations?
Well, things are different, and things have changed now. As I said, my mother's reason was that my father is a polygamist. There are other children. If there's so many reasons not to like your father, either he spends more time with your other siblings, or he didn't buy you Biro, you bought them, there'll be all different reasons. Or they went to this school, or you went to that school. You see, for a polygamous father, there are so many reasons why you're going to dislike your dad for one reason or the other. But she didn't want to give me any of those reasons. She wanted me to see a man who provides for you and cares for you. That's all the information she wanted me to see. Now today, it's a different world. Children are more mature. Children, they see things even before you even think of telling them. They understand things better. They assimilate faster. So you might make a different decision now. Maybe a child might have a better understanding of what's going on, and you'll be surprised, be more mature. So it depends on the kind of child you have and what society and what community you grew up in. So if you live in a different country where everybody around you has similar stories, your child might be able to handle it. In a community where they're more conservative, you might be willing to shield your child. So I guess it all depends on where you are as a person and where your society you live in.
I would say the compensation for you, if you ask me, was the fact that your mom got exactly what she wanted. A girl.
A girl.
And so when I got to that part, after reading all about the story, which I'm not going to tell you, you go read the book yourself. So after reading all of that, and then she went enough to say, although my mom nursed the desire to have a girl, she did not want to have another child under strained circumstances. That's all I'm going to tell you about that one. And so she nursed in the desire to have a daughter. And then you came along. That must have been a huge compensation for her.
And it was on her birthday. So the doctor brought me out and said, happy birthday, Tino. Interesting, that same doctor, what's his name? Doctor, the same doctor that gave birth to my daughter.
Wow.
He was old, he was in his 80s, and he was still alive, and he was still practicing. Is it Coca? I can't remember the name now. He was the one that delivered me, and he delivered.
Amazing.
So I went back to him and said, since you are still alive, you might as well just go deliver my first. But he was the one that carried me and gave me to my mom. Happy birthday, Tino.
Special birthday gift.
Yes.
I've always wanted to have a child on my birthday. Probably would never happen, but well, I can imagine how much that would have lifted your mom's spirits, considering all that she was going through at that time.
Thrilled. Oh, she spoiled me like a doll. What? When they say Cinderella story, my mother, and that time she had money. Before then, she was just somebody who was building her business. But when I was born, she was in money. She was traveling to India, going to UK, bringing in goods here and there. So she would doll me up, pink dresses, pink shoes, pink bag, everything. In fact, even people just wanted this girl. I think the first one to have a child, a daughter. So she dolled me up a lot. She spoiled me rotten. I mean, my mother was really happy to have me.
I'm glad we're talking about your mom now, because that's one thing I know you did mention. You spoke about her business and all. Do you feel proud of your mom's achievements?
Oh yeah. My mom, you see, my mom was, her father was very popular in Lagos. He was the former Mayor of Lagos. And I was telling somebody recently that he planned his life very well. And she also got the business acumen from her father, and she ran lots of businesses. She says, Morayo, I've done eggs, I've sold wine, I've sold flour, I've sold sugar. There's nothing she has not sold in this Lagos. And she has several stores in Akpongbo in Lagos at the time. She was a very, very successful businesswoman, and she also did work for different companies, Nigerian breweries at the time. She would supply them raw materials. She was really, really industrious as a young woman. And I mean, she faced her work. I mean, during that time, and again, because she's a polygamous family, it's important for you as a wife to hold your own, because resources are shared. So you wanted to make sure that. So even my father, then when I was growing up, he wanted to bring all of us into one school. My mother said, no. My own child will go to Corona. I can afford it. Whatever the school fees you're paying for the others, give me. I'll add it to what Corona is asking for.
Exactly.
She's going to Corona. So she just wanted a different life for me, from every other person.
Wow. And then, of course, talking about your dad, your dad features in the next page. That's page 8. Now, you talked about your father being a successful lawyer and tireless worker.
Yes.
And I just wonder, when you think of your dad, what runs through your mind every time your dad comes to mind?
The people. He was a comrade. He was the man of the people. My father would defend the case, and he'll take oranges as payment, or he won't collect payments at all. He was a man of the people. He was one of the I think the NBA presidents that they never really wanted him to. They wanted him to continue his reign, and they named the NBA building after him when he died, Akabasharon building. He was one of the most radical lawyers back then, and he was one of Babangida's very ruthless enemies that Babangida hated him at the time. He went on self-exile, and he went through a lot for this country, and he was one of those people that really fought for our democracy, and he really pushed to get the military out and all that. So this is a man that when I see him, I only think of Nigeria and the people. He's a human rights activist, and I'm growing up, I used to see Mr. Femi Falana used to carry his suitcase up and down. He was like his protege, was always the one coming to the house, typing stuff on the papers, Now he's a big guy, but he used to work with my dad back then. My dad was like my dad's direct protege at the time. And I used to grow up as a little girl, used to see Mr. Falana coming to the house and just, following my dad to court and all that. So he was a real man of the people, and he always defended democracy the best he could.
I can imagine how proud you are of him. But then, there's a part where you talked about being politically aware at an early age.
Yes.
When you say early, how early?
Well, I think from when I can remember, I think from like 8 years old when people come to the house. So because of my accident, it's always difficult to pick all the exact moments, but I do have flashes of memories growing up. And I do remember that when I was 10, 11 years old, my dad used to have people coming to the house, talking about politics, and then he used to make us read. He would say, maybe when I'm over the weekend at my stepmother's house, he give us newspapers to read. Yes. He give us books to read. He will let us, to know what's going on. What are your thoughts on the country? When we see Babangida, when we see his name on front page paper, we're asking, how come your name is on front page? So he used to engage us then to just know what's going on in the country, and he would ask questions, so that you are well aware of what's happening in the nation.
Now, from talking about your dad, we go straight to you mentioning your brothers again.
Yeah.
Yes, which is the second time, but you still come across it many other times. So you talked about Dipo, Lai, and Shegun.
Yes.
And how growing up without them was depressing.
Yes.
Now, you were 3 years old when they left.
Yeah.
And I wonder, for some parents, is step by step. You go first, you follow, then you after. There's this thing of, you have a younger one to take care of. So you know what, Dipo, you go first. After about 2-3 years, Lai, follow. Then Shegun can now go much later when Morayo is a lot older and can take care of herself. But that wasn't the case. Why were all three of them sent?
Because we were born back to back, 65, 66, 67. So they were like triplets, and they graduated almost around the same time, and it was just, and I think things were good for my parents at the time, so it was easy to just take them off at the same time. So, and I came 12 years after. I came 12 years after the last one, so they weren't expecting me at all. So the three boys left around the same time.
The youngest was about 15 then?
Possibly, yes. So everybody just left around the same time.
Wow.
And that was a decision of the family.
Really tough on you, as you said. Okay, so your dad never liked the fact that your brothers didn't want to come back home.
Yes. When I was leaving to the US, he said, he made me promise that, listen, you have to come back. And you can't really blame my brothers either, because when you school abroad, you get into the system, you graduate, you get married there, you start have a family, at that time, there wasn't so much clamoring for coming back home. People just went back and I started a family. So, but he always desired, because he was a lawyer, he was a prominent lawyer. He would like that. He wanted the idea of his children coming back and taking over his firm and being part of the Nigerian system. But that didn't happen. So I know somewhere at the back of his mind, he wished they had. But hey, it is what it is. So when I was going, he now said, Morayo, please make sure you come back no matter what happens.
So we talked about your dad as a disciplinarian, but for you to talk about how he spoke to you about staying, coming back to Nigeria to build your life here, it takes me back to chapter 10 and how your dad used to be a disciplinarian until the biscuit incident.
Yeah, actually, so that, for everybody who knows me knows that story. Like, I've shared that story my entire life. But you know, interestingly, my father, I heard of my father being a disciplinarian from everybody else except him. Like, he never beat me. In fairness, my father, he never, onto the biscuit matter. You know, because I came 12 years after, so it wasn't as if they were beating anybody. I was like, you know, but daddy was already probably older. You know, but
you're like a grandchild even.
The biscuit story, you read it in the book, but that was an experience, and it was like a stamp on me, like forever. That story was stuck out of me because my dad was really angry and he beat me mercilessly.
There was a lesson you learned from it, and I remember when I got to the point of the lesson, I actually put the book down. And I thought of similar incidents that I experienced, and I asked myself, why didn't I think of this as the lesson too? Because the lesson was, when the chips are down, you're alone. You can catch that on page 11. And I said to myself, that is so true.
Yeah.
Like, you know how you can be so generous?
Yes. When the chips are down, because the biscuits, I shared it to the whole neighborhood. Everybody, I would never forget. I shared it across the street to the different neighbors. I knocked on their door. My daddy bought me biscuit. I shared it. Everybody was next door. They got, drivers were closing. I gave them to, you know, everybody got a piece. When the katakata burst, it
was Morayo,
my God, that enjoyed the beating.
Wow.
But, yeah.
And then we go to Dada.
Yes.
What was she like to you growing up?
Dada was my stepmother, and she actually was somebody that taught me a lot of things without me even know she was teaching me. Dada was a cook. And it was in our house that I saw people cook it, because in my own house my mother was always very busy. I've never seen my mother in the kitchen ever, and my mother had helps in the house. But Dada was somebody that was constantly in the kitchen, although she never allowed me into her kitchen for no reason. But I used to observe how she was constantly cooking and cutting, and you know, and just people around, even though outside they're washing the meat, I just knew there were a lot of activities around cooking. So she just taught me the fact that not all mothers are like my mom that go to work and come back late, that there are some mothers that actually do cook with the family. So she showed me that part of me. Dada was also my father's second wife, and he always had to go to her house first, especially when he's traveling from abroad, because he's in Isolo, it's closest to the airport. So he stops there and before they come to my house. And Dad in itself had his own issues, my own. I felt funny because I always felt like they saw everything. They open that. When your daddy comes back from abroad, you all want to witness the opening together. Let us see what daddy brought. Let us share it together.
This is my own. Let's quarrel. No, this is my own and all that.
It's been done in a summer before they now bring the leftovers to. God, I used to feel really bad, but he never knew, and I never used to complain, because back then we don't complain. We just take things in, you know. But it was as I grew up, I then realized that those things used to affect me, but I just never say anything. But Dada in herself was definitely somebody that also had a bit of impact in my life. So
you had your mom on the right hand, you had Dada on the left. If you were to talk about the balance your life has come to be now, would you say you are an influence of both women, or you would say you're still more of your mom?
Oh, 100% my mom. No. 100%, because you see, I would rather not go into the relationship or what I learned or what I felt wasn't right from different places. But my mom was such a huge influence, because you know when you see your dad do some things and you just want to get upset, your mother will tell you the good sides of your dad. Why are you upset? No, don't let that bother you. Daddy only means it this way. She knows that I'm right too, but she would always defend her husband. Tension. Always. Unfortunately, my stepmother is like that. My mother is a firecracker. She will break it down, scatter everywhere for you. You know, that was just her own personality. So I think the kind of person I am, my demeanor is on my mother. Even in the face of tension, aggression, my mother stays still. She always looks at the bigger picture. She never loses sight of the bigger picture. And that's what she's taught me. No matter how upset I am about something, a situation, once I see the bigger picture, I'm able to control my anger, control my tension and everything. So that's what my mom taught me. And I think she was a bigger influence for me than anybody else.
So you have fond memories. That's normal. But I know quite well that the book wouldn't have been able to detail all the fond memories you had with your step-siblings. Yeah. Can you mention one that sticks out till date?
Well, when we go to Ajashe, Kotono, we used to have Morayo. Oh God, I used to love Morayo. That's eko and atara with fish, and it was awesome. We used to also order cocoa. There'll be those the hawkers would be working with cocoa very hot in the morning. So you take cocoa, after cocoa, then maybe later in the day, and that I would do grill or something, some kind of grilled chicken. They used to call it grilled chicken, and I used to love the food. As I said, my stepmother was a cook, so when it comes to food, trust me, you're good to go. So that was the contrast between my stepmom. My mom was quiet. She wasn't like wahala. She was the first wife. She just like, my stepmother was a firecracker. She doesn't take nonsense. So they're two different people. As I said, I was probably more influenced by my mom because of that. I stayed closer with her. Yeah.
Okay, so we're ending chapter 1 now in readiness for chapter 2. Well, I'll tell you to go get the book. I think, Morayo, you should tell us where can we get it?
So the books are available at Roving Heights. You can, those of you that love reading books at Roving Heights, please, you can pick it up there. Also, you can go to my website, kabitimedia.com. You can also send me a DM. It's also fine. I will see your request on my DMs and I'll be happy to respond. You can also go on my page, Morayo Brown. You see all the various phone numbers. I have my flyers there. And it's also on Amazon. For those of you living abroad, it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. You can order online. And we'll be happy to deliver to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Looking forward to sending you a copy.